Hi everyone, I am back after a little bit over a week, I think, with a new video for you guys. I am coming to talk about God's promises today. I was praying sometime last week, I think early last week, and God began to speak to me concerning a promise that He had made me. And one of the things that He had really put in my spirit is that when God makes us a promise, it's important for us to believe wholeheartedly and fully in that promise. It's important for us not to believe God for kind of or sort of or close to whatever it is that He said He was going to do, whatever it is that He promised you. It's important for you to believe for exactly what it is that He promised you. And even if the promise challenges your faith, even if the promise seems like it's completely, impossible for it to come to pass, or improbable because of your surroundings and what you see, even if the promise defies logic, it's important for you to believe in and for exactly what it is that God promised you, because God makes us big promises because it's meant to stretch our faith. When a promise is greater than what we see, one of the purposes for that promise is that in your going through the process and the time between when God made it and when you see it fulfilled is for it to build your faith. And in waiting for the promise, especially when you don't know the timeline, especially when it seems impossible as it is, it's meant to break you. It's meant to bring you to your knees, and cause you to become humble before God so that He can fill more of Himself into you, so that He can pour, more of Himself, more of His strength into you, because that is what causes you to grow. In brokenness, God pours, and then in that crack you spread and you stretch. And that is what causes you and enables you to grow. That's one of the ways that, we see the wisdom of God. And as believers, people who really have a heart for Him, our greatest hunger, our greatest desire, the truth of us is that we want to see God be glorified. And God, knowing who those people are, He gives certain promises to certain people. Not everyone can handle the magnitude of certain promises. So there are certain promises He doesn't make to certain people. Or, of course, there's levels, there's levels to this, as they say. So, He is mindful of that, and He knows that we are like glory people. We want to see God be glorified. So He knows, who will stick through the process, because we're built for it. He made us, to be able to withstand the process of arriving of whatever that thing is. And we want to give Him glory. And, God's ultimate goal, is to get the glory and to be glorified. So, He makes us the promise, knowing that we'll hold on, knowing that we'll stick it out. And the reward and the benefit for us, outside of seeing the promise manifested is, experiencing God through that journey, growing, being refined, becoming fortified. The promise is never really about the promise itself. Typically, well, I'm going to say all the time, because it's more than just about what you receive. The process is like the most significant part. There is something that God is trying to accomplish in you and do in you through the process. And the process also helps prepare you, for wherever the promise is, because the promise, any promise here on earth besides heaven, is not the end goal. Heaven is our end goal. Heaven is our ultimate promise. But, the things that He promises us here on the earth, it's all like a stepping stone. So one promise, is like the stair that you stand on, and then how when you're going upstairs you have the flat of the stair, then there's the curve, and then there's the next step. So your promise is here, and then this little space right here is the process that prepares you and strengthens you to get here. And then you just continue going on like that until eventually, you either pass and, you go to heaven, or you get raptured up and you go to heaven, whichever way it works, whichever happens first. But it's never just about the promise. The process is incredibly important, and there are things that God wants to do in that process. But, and that's the reason why it's so important for us to believe for exactly what God said, because believing for anything less, something similar, something close to, it automatically lessens the intensity and the weight of the process, because some of the integrity, the strength, the structure, the substance of what God promised you, what you are believing for, has now been altered because you've changed what you're believing in. God didn't promise you similar. He didn't promise you close to. He didn't promise you, almost. He promised you something exactly. And it's important for you to believe exactly so that you can go through that process exactly, the way that He has crafted the process to be, that's leading up to whatever that promise, whatever that thing is. He promised you what He promised you for a reason, because what He promised you, again, it has a direct impact, or the process leads to, like, the process is, it comes from, it's birthed out of, like, it leads directly into what He promised you. So the process is taking you to the promise. And you have to believe exactly. They're connected. And you have to be submitted, and you have to be willing. I had to pause the video to go do something real quick. So it's like a weird connect between the part I paused and this part. It's the same flow. But getting back on topic, it's important to surrender, submit yourself to the level of faith that God demands, according to what He has promised you, the level of faith that is required and that is demanded to carry you, through the process to the promise that God has for you. Because, in that submission, it's meant and intended for the weight of that thing to break you again, so that you can grow, so that you can be expanded. It's just like a muscle. If that muscle, is never put under pressure, if that muscle never has to lift a greater weight than what it's used to, it will never grow. Your faith is a muscle, and in order for your faith to be increased, God has to put it under a greater pressure, and that pressure comes from the size of the promise that He has given to you. That's one of the reasons why He gives us such large promises, is, to cause us as people to grow, as individuals to develop naturally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. And then also for our faith to grow as well, because our faith has to be strengthened. Our faith has to be strong, because we have to have faith for more than just ourselves in this life. Our faith has to be so strong and so powerful that it is also, impactful in the lives of other people. We have to have a certain kind of faith. We have to have a faith that's strong enough, to break chains. We have to have faith that's strong enough, to cast out demons. We have to have faith that's strong enough to heal people. We have to have a faith that's strong enough to, radically, believe for and change the lives of people off the streets, prostitutes, the crazy stuff that we don't talk about, rapists, child molesters, people that have all kinds of stuff going on in their path. Our faith has to be strong enough to reach them, and to really impact them so that, God can come in and make that change and do that drastic thing and that drastic work in them. So in everything you go through, in life, you have to remember that it's always connected to the bigger picture, and that it's never just about the moment, and it's never just about what you're experiencing or what you're going through right then and right there, the pressure, and the weight that comes with having to believe for whatever it is that God promised you. It's about more than just you. Everything is connected to something else, and it's like this chain that just goes up, 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 leading right up to God, right up to heaven, right up to his purpose and his ultimate goal and his mission. So that's all that I came to say. Believe God for exactly what it is that he promised you. Submit. Allow yourself to be crushed. Allow yourself to be broken. Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to be weak. Be honest. Be genuine before God. Come to him broken. He intends for it to break you so that he can fill you with his strength, fill you with his power, fill you with more of him, expand you, stretch you, expand your faith, strengthen you, as his vessel. Allow yourself to be used, be obedient, and it'll all work out the way it's supposed to.